Good afternoon, everyone. In today's CLEA seminar, we have with us Shima Beigi. Shima is our colleague at CLEA, a research scientist at CLEA, and also a CEO of a company which is called AI Therapeutics for Mindful Smart Cities. And smart cities and mindfulness in this context is the topic of her talk today. So yeah, here is Shima's slides on the camera. Camera goes to Shima. Here she is. Shima.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for preparing this space. I am very excited to be here. Thank you, Martha, for preparing everything. And thank you for those that will watch these recordings on YouTube. So today I'm going to talk about my book, Mindful Smart Cities. And I have to say, I am very happy to talk about it because I published my book in early 2020, where it was pandemic. So I couldn't have the opportunity to really describe and do a book tour, so to speak. So this opportunity is the very first time that I am in a kind of an official setting of the University of Beigi, which has been so kind enough to support and fund my research over the years and present my book. Today, I'm going to talk about going beyond techno-centric smart cities with the approach of my book, Mindful Smart Cities. But I also want to talk a little bit about some of my new thoughts that I have developed over the past year. And I would like to also do a little exercise, although there are not so many of us right now, but for those of you who will watch this video later, feel free to do the exercise and write in the comments section your thoughts, because I think that would be very interesting to see how you see a mindful smart city. Before starting about talking about smart cities, I want to give you a little bit of statistic. I think it's one of the most, I think, popular statistic that has been cited by all articles online. This notion of by 2050, 68% of world population will live cities. This was released by United Nations prospect report on UN basically world urbanization. And since then, a lot of research been talking about how this increased level of urbanization will influence our lives, and what kind of strategies, what kind of infrastructures, what kind of technologies we need to develop in order to address these challenges. I want to give you a little bit of insight, the bigger view of this 68% or near 70%, because I think it's very important to give context to statistics so that we can understand how we can develop a more people-centric design. So urbanization in chart. This is a section that I adopted from my website, and you can look at this, the whole charts, which are kind of like 8 or 4 more of these charts on my website, the website of the company. But for today, I want to focus on 6 slides that are very important data by open worlding data. It shows the increased level of urbanization around the world. So this is a classic pattern that is happening around the world. And you will see that these challenges, this increased level of urbanization also shows cross effect with climate change and sustainability goals. So some of the regions of the world that are so challenged by climate change are also in the regions that will be facing increased level of urbanization. So this will be, I think in the current research, the need for a smart city is coupled with a couple of articles that I think are so classic as well. And these are the articles by the Resilience Institute at Stockholm University, that they published series of basically high-level, high-caliber research at Nature and Science, that they show that the operating space for humanity is basically shrinking. So we need to do something about it. These are the articles that are basically classically cited by all city research and sustainability research in cities as well, which I kind of put them here to show that these research then trigger another kind of force to basically counteract the increased level of urbanization and how we can address the challenges of climate change and sustainability. And that is the concept of, one second. So the concept of smart cities. So in response to these challenges, some suggested that in order to address the challenge, we should focus on smart cities. So what are smart cities and what kind of smartness is needed to address complex challenges such as urbanization? I think I wanted to give you some definitions, but then I thought that in order to understand the current smart city basically vision, it's necessary to understand the paradigms. So this section, I speak a little bit about the current paradigms of smart cities, which are mainly, there are so many definitions. I will release an article by the end of May, which I analyzed the existing definitions, which show that many of them are techno-centric. In fact, I categorize them, and I think I have this next slide that shows what kind of definitions are there, and then how smart cities are basically designed around these definitions. They're mainly, the current paradigm, they're mainly designed by experts and technology developers. The mobility dimension, smart mobility, mainly dominates the narrative, and I guess this is the case because the majority of smart city designs actually argue against the car-centric design. So basically the mobility dimension, I think, is a counter reaction to that, taking that car-centric designs away from the future design of cities. I guess, like many other disciplines, the dominant vision is also defined by men, and therefore they lack female visionaries and female futurists. And I think I have to say that one of the motivations behind writing my book actually was this, to actually propose an alternative view developed by a female and hopefully inspire other young women and female scientists to join the conversation, and also counterbalance the biased view of intelligence. The majority of these definitions and paradigms are also looking at smart city as mainly a collection of connected objects, such as AKA Internet of Things. The idea of people centricity, although it is very much branded in latest smart city views, they're not really integrated into smart city visions. There are also this idea of man versus machine. So there is no space for man and machine, and this co-creation of man and machine, or man, machine, and technology. So they're very much kind of like black and white man-machine, I think, view, so that there is space for basically alternative approaches. I think two other dimensions that are so close to my understanding is that, and also my motivation, is that most of these smart city views, they look at smart city from a perspective of an engineering perspective. So they lack this socio-technological approach that shows how the technology, the forces of technology interact with dynamics of society, and which later I show in one of the barriers of changing this paradigm, where this thing is coming from, this socio-technological, lack of socio-technological thinking. I think the last point, which I think very few people touch on, maybe it's because it's a little bit maybe out of maybe popular opinion, is that they lack connection with spirituality and sense of meaning. So that therefore they are disconnected from the system of life. In my the new article that I'm going to release by the end of May, I analyzed this definition, and I discovered that the majority of these definitions that I mentioned at the beginning of this slide can be categorized in three groups. First of all, there are ICT-centered definitions. They are socio-technological centered, even though that's still the paradigm missing this vision and angle. And the third group of definitions, which are the latest publications, they show value and service centric. For each of these, I put also a definition, which I'm not going to read, but they're there for you to realize and to be basically looking at. So I think what's happening based on all this information is that somehow, somewhere, we're basically lost in translation. So we really were taken over by the idea of what intelligence is and what smartness actually entails. So these are cases, some of these basically projects that I feel like they're taking, they're dominating the narrative. And I think they are dominating for wrong reasons. And one of the wrong reason is that they are being supported by large, basically financial backup. This is a project that is in Saudi Arabia, NEOM, which has a large, basically, advertisement. This city claims to be the first zero carbon, fully sustainable city. And also lately, they also recognize it as the world's first cognitive city. This is a city that is backed by the latest of technology. And I think because it has this narrative of latest of technology, also it attracts the most basically successful tech companies, private sectors and developers. Therefore, they lack this approach of bringing grassroots and also bottom-up voices into this narrative. So I call it, this is a city that is going to be dominated by all technological devices. And these technological devices are going to monitor everything so that they can push the city or keep the city in an envelope of basically sustainability that they define, based on, of course, what is deemed as sustainable right now. But I wonder, this kind of approach, would they lead us to a smart city or a smart prison? Because everything is monitored, so you don't know what will happen by the end of this development. Another project is this project of Sango that is also approaching cities from the perspective of you buy the land, and then when you buy the land, you attract the biggest investors and the big tech companies, and then you build that city on a land that you bought, and then you migrate citizens into that vision. So in this approach, what I think is evident is this idea of a real estate mentality, where the city is seen as a real estate. Basically, you buy a land, you have a map, and then you build it, and then you profile citizens because they have to be fitting into that vision, and therefore you call it a smart city. I don't think these projects are smart cities. They are basically offshoot of I think they're the tech-centric and also capitalistic view of smart cities. And also another gap that I think I didn't mention it in the presentation, but I think also it comes from the idea of it's easier to fund this kind of project than a bottom-up people-centric approach, because the current model of smart city, the business model, favors this design, which has a faster return on investment. So I can understand why these projects are basically very dominant. Okay. So this is the project of Smart City 2050, a vision of Japanese cities. This is a document that I recommend for those people who are interested in understanding this society 5.0 of Japan, which I'm going to go towards that categorization of societies later in my slides. But this article in Nature is an opinion piece that is published in response to the document of Smart City 2050 in Japan that describes why Japan is building smart cities from scratch. And one of the reasons is basically the age population of people in Japan. And I'm kind of very surprised because this article finishes by this sentence. I think it's a bit difficult to zoom on it, but it says basically, although it's by no means appropriate for all cities, the approach of creating smart cities, smart communities from scratch, it could be quicker and more comprehensive than retrofitting existing neighborhoods, one technology at a time. So I think I am against this approach. I think we can do so much by retrofitting society, then we can have a slower approach and slower arrival to a smarter city in vision by investing in social capital rather than seeking smartness from just technological solutions. So I think building from scratch, another part of it is this efficiency mindset. So we need to do paradigm shift. But what is, first of all, we have to recognize the paradigm, and then we have to change it. And for changing it, we have to understand what are the barriers towards that change. So here I have 8 barriers recognized to share with you. First of all, the first paradigm, I think, is silo thinking, which says basically smart house plus smart car plus smart grid plus new AI tools such as GPT 1, 2, 3, 4 or whatever, or the latest ideas on artificial general intelligence would lead to a smart city. I think one understanding should be a city is not a mechanical system. You cannot just by adding smart component, you don't get a smart city. The second barrier is this idea of techno-centricity, which is basically the core of this talk as well, which comes from the idea of the more IoT you have, the better, basically, because the more sensors you distribute in your environment, an urban environment, you will get a smart city. Because if you make everything smart and you add them together, basically you get a smarter city. Basically, barrier 1 and 2 are interconnected. The third barrier, again, connected to the idea of branding cities and the idea of NEOM, for example, here I gave you the example of Songdo smart city, is this branding and labeling. So you buy a land, as I said, or you acquire a land, and then you call it a smart vision, and then you brand it, and by that you invade the civil spaces through big technologies, and then and then force the population to deal with challenges such as ethics and privacy issues. And then you profile citizens and then migrate citizens into a new future, which actually lacks continuity. The city, if you look at, for example, the history of cities and how urban communities come together, it comes from these old bazaar spaces in Middle East where people would smartly gather together in a bazaar and they would trade together, and through this cognitive and also social cognitive exchange and social bonding, they would create their community. So in these visions, there is no community, there is no sense of continuity and connection to the history and emergence of new behaviors, new neighborhoods, and new spaces in the city. But I have to say, this is the most probably, up to this moment, has been the most, I think, profitable business. The fourth barrier is simply the narrative is dominated by men. And because of that, there is this limited and biased view of smartness. What does it mean to live a smart city? So lately, I came across this project by United Nations, an initiative by United Nations. It's called Her City, which defines basically designing a smart city for women, especially in areas where girls and women are continuously harassed in cities, streets, and communities and neighborhoods. So really, I think there is a need for having a mixed view of smartness and also mixed view of what makes how to design algorithms and how to design technology for smartness. The fifth barrier, which I think is the most important one, which maybe I had to put it on the first, but I think it's okay to be here. But I think the most important one is this weak knowledge of network societies. Knowledge of network societies. I highly recommend those people who are interested in smart cities definitely look at this book by Manuel Castles, which he speaks about since the emergence of internet, the structure of our society has been changing, and the society as being a top-down, male-centric, and also having one core is changing. So it's moving toward decentralization, and this decentralization, if not understood, it will lead to fragmentation and isolation, and ultimately depression. The sixth barrier is that we do not know what does it mean to have smart citizenship framework. and how to actually inhabit a smart lifestyle in a digital world. This is a book, again, I highly recommend, by Carlo Ratti, one of my mentors in urban design and smart cities. Another one is that we need to have alternative models, not only business model, but I argue also we need to understand value models. Then the eighth barrier is this idea that by having more Internet of Things, we somehow this will lead to emergence of something called global brain or global nervous system. So I was just recently, I think today I was discussing with Francis that I think the idea of interconnecting everything and having a global nervous system might not be the right analogy, because what do we have as a nervous system is something that produces reactions, emotions, and responses. And if we want to just connect things and we say by having an internet, we are leading to a global brain basically world. If that nervous system doesn't produce feelings and emotions, I don't know what that is. Maybe it's just a collection of kind of maybe smart responsive objects and sensors and not that intelligent. So therefore, it leads to this idea of living in a society that is interconnected but is void of deep connectivity. Therefore, so people in this kind of society would feel depressed, isolated, and disconnected. So this is a part of research that we're doing now, thanks to the funding of Human Energy Project with Professor Heiligen and other colleagues, which can basically look in Human Energy Project. So let's rethink smart cities with mindful smart cities. I believe we need more than just technologically smart cities. We need mindfully smart cities. And a mindful smart city, ultimately a mindful smart world, is made of series of conscious actions, mindful behaviors, and not just motivation. So I think what we need is this constant modification of our behavior, constant modification of our technologies, and not just hoping for having technology solving our problems and really just having motivation. So really basically opting for a better behavior. The first, I think, way to build a mindful smart city is to first understand that smart cities are complex, decentralized, adaptive interfaces, meaning that they are adaptive, they're evolvable, and they're changing. So in order to go, so first we need to change our view of smart cities. So smart car plus smart house plus smart phone or watch or what not would not lead to a smart city. It's more complex than that. So in my book, of course, I critiqued and criticized the current smart city definitions, but I also wanted to have this vision of not blaming, not this culture of not blaming, and looking at it as a paradigm, something that we can actually change. And offering a roadmap, I think, is the best way forward. Therefore, I want to now share just this section of my book, the building blocks of mindful smart cities, and then proposing this idea of urban therapeutic. So my company, which I launched last year, has this approach of a therapeutic approach, meaning that really understanding what's going on with the current smart cities, and like a good therapy that has good level of listening and understanding, really understanding what causes those paradigms that are not working for us, and then offering solutions rather than just blaming. So the mindful smart city paradigm or alternative model consists of 10 design principles which combats techno-centricity model. I included 5 human digital urban rights, which I think this is the best part of my book that I am personally very proud of, because it shows that there is more than just adding technological devices to smart cities. And by adding any technological devices into your city or any city, you will also touch the interface of society, and therefore have to have this continuity with urban and human rights. This is also a way to take the power out of the hands of big tech companies and also this branding approach. Also, I suggested the idea that smartness is not just one step. I look at it as a 7-level smartness approach, which some societies need to go through probably first level and second steps way before other cities. And some cities, because of their current technological readiness, they are able to have higher degrees of smartness. And therefore, we don't have this one-size-fits-all formula. 7 levels of decentralization versus this focus on the governance model, which has this centralization model. And 7-level roadmap to smartness versus not having any vision right now. Also having a vision of Internet of Things versus Internet of Things. Internet of People, apologies, versus Internet of Things. And these, the last two, which are kind of the focus of my talk today, I want to talk about this recently developed idea of deep decentralization versus singularity, and then also the model of triple AI model versus the focus on smartness through AI. So these are briefly the building block of mindful smart cities. You can read more about them on the website, which I put here. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about deep decentralization, hopefully have your opinion on the idea versus singularity, and also discuss a little bit about triple AI model that I developed versus this model of focusing on smartness through AI. But before any of that, I want to talk about the current vision of moving the society towards smartness. So before internet emerges and before this super smart society's vision of Japan that is very promoted by Japan, we were living in coexistence with nature. So the form of society, the way that the society and therefore settlement was formed was based on the structure of the hunting society. This was the birth of human being. Gradually, we moved towards agricultural society, and then corresponding to that, we changed the way we built relationship with the built environment, and then toward industrialization, and then toward information society, and then towards super smart societies or society 5.0 that is promoted by Japan. So this is the old paradigm. In my approach, in mindful smart cities, I want to suggest a different thinking, and that is a new thinking. And that is, we need to focus not just on a super smart society, which is by technological devices and by actually machinery devices, up to here in this old paradigm side of the presentation, this slide, the evolution is seen through machines. So the advancement of machines from machineries to technological machines is being seen as the main evolutionary force that pushes society forward. But now in the new thinking, I want to suggest actually the new evolution would come if the society moves toward mindfulness, and if it's the society, which I hope will be able to basically promote, is this society 7.0, which is a society that is based on wisdom, a society that is based on fundamental values such as compassion, love, and inclusion. The 5 human digital urban rights are briefly the right to a smart city, which is continuation of Lefebvre's right to city approach, which shows that citizens have the right to city design. And then the right to information, the right to technology, the right to design, and the right to becoming. All of these definitions, you can find them on the website. So for kind of for the talk, for the duration of this talk, I decided to not include the description. There are 10 design principles also. Internet of Things, plus things, people, things, and interfaces. Humans are not programmable. Smart is not about just tech. Complex adaptive systems model, resilience and sustainability, interdependent interfaces, and the behood that we develop in by living in cities. And then looking at smart cities as some technological epigenetic landscape where through mindful adoption of technological devices, we can shape behavior of society and invite people to participate in co-creation of something better. And then looking also at smart cities as spaces of possibilities rather than just spaces that are powered by ICT and are helping us to combat the challenges of sustainability. And then last principle, which is basically inspired by, I think, years of studying in spirituality, meditation, and travels to India and other places, is this idea of extending the idea of mindfulness, the space where you cultivate during meditation, into design, and then calling it smartfulness, in that you have this vision of including the impact of your technology on society into design. So I want to now talk a little bit about the deep decentralization. And for that, are we living in the age of disruption, chaos, or something else? I think we live in a very potent times. It's definitely disruptive times, but maybe for good reasons. And I want to promote this positive thinking, hopefully, in this talk. Deep decentralization is a concept I developed in response to the disruption, question of disruption. And I noticed that, pardon? No. 7 levels of decentralization leading to deep decentralization. So since last year, I've been looking at how, for example, with the emergence of tokenization, blockchain technology, latest developments in AI, it seems that all industries are being affected. And I noticed that, well, maybe I can summarize them into 7 levels and then observe how these layers are changing. And I think the focus of deep decentralization of today, I want to focus on, first of all, let me read through those 7 levels. I think decentralization is happening at a very rapid rate and is influencing 7 layers of our socio-technological systems. At the level of individuals, at the level of industry, economy, science, culture, art, music, literature, meaning, and spirituality. And for today, I want to focus on just individuals, culture, and meaning and spirituality. So in response to these changes, the society, it might either move toward this crisis if individuals are being decentralized and disconnected from the larger meaning of life, or it can lead to something more meaningful. And in response to this crisis, I developed this model of AAAI, which is a cognitive tool specially designed to move beyond the techno-centric view and approach of smart city and ensuring the integration of multiple intelligences, flows, and forms in the smart city design process. So if this decentralization is happening, it might lead to a society that is deeply connected through technological devices, but is also deeply fragmented. Or it might lead to a society that is deeply decentralized, but also deeply connected, and therefore individuals are deeply inspired to have impact. And I hope that the second vision comes true. So what is the AAAI model? It's a cognitive shifting model, as I said, and it consists of focusing on bringing 3 streams of intelligence into design of a smart city. The first one is focusing on awakening individuals, simply actually inspiring people to find a deeper sense of self, to have this inspiration to live their lives fully and to simply be awakened. The second component is the connection to the ancient intelligence. I think almost 100% of smart city definitions do not have any continuity and connection to ancient intelligence. So I am born in Iran, and in Iran we have a very deep body of universal, I think, pieces of literature that suggest I think incredible sources of finding resilience and meaning and broadening your sense of self. And I think other cultures do have such resources that can be integrated into a body of universe, building a body of universal wisdom. So this ancient intelligence is very much inspired by this existing ancient intelligences around the world that aren't being integrated to the smart city model. And then having an artificial intelligence as an integral part of designing smart city also. So I think the age of disruption could be the age of disruption of what doesn't work, actually. And it should be, maybe it's the age of good chaos, or maybe it's the age of deep decentralization and the age of deep impact. So this is something that I want to promote. And then also saying that what we see right now in the smart city domain, the techno-centricity, is not really a sin. It's a paradigm, and it can change. And in order to change that paradigm, I think we need to start from ourselves. We need to be more, I think, mindful. And there is a process for that. And I think that process can consist of us finding reasons that these paradigms are there. You might be in other industries, but there are the paradigm of top-down is very dominant. I think it's at the current industries that are under the umbrella of smart cities. Also avoiding the blame culture. Instead of just saying, well, everything is like the current paradigm is technocentric, or blaming big tech companies, maybe just avoiding that and offering solutions. Also, I think we are called at these times to heal fragmentation and then inviting others to co-create. So I want to say that to me, a smart city is really a journey, is not a defined way that you can migrate your citizens into. It's a place where you do, by rethinking, redoing, and reclaiming the city's form and supporting its citizens to transform their way of life, mindset, and behavior. So for me, the smart city is a journey of collective transformation of people, places, planet, and technology. So this is basically the core of Mindful Smart City, looking at a city more than just a collection of objects, buildings, streets, and cars, but then looking at it as a place where it influences people's behavior, and also inviting people to participate in its creation. And now I think we come to the end of my presentation, which is an invitation for you. If you could make only one change to your city to make it more mindful, what would that be? Either please write it in the chat box, or if you want to talk about it, or if you want to talk about it in YouTube, the description or response section, feel free to do so. I will be very happy to know your answers. And with that said, thank you very much for your listening and your time. Okay. Stop sharing.
Yeah.
I have a question, possibly. I missed the beginning. I'm sorry, but you are well hidden here. No ways to enter easily. So I don't know whether you haven't touched on that in the beginning of your talk that you speak. But and I must say I bothered to read your book, so I know what you speak about there. You speak of mindfulness and smartness a lot. What I did not see that much is happiness. Do you in any way equate mindfulness with happiness? How do they relate in your mind? Being a mindful smart city, does that bring about being a happy city? Or do they have nothing to do with each other? And let's say to strive for a mindful smart city, does that mean you strive for a happy city? Or if you are faced with a happy city, would you be satisfied with that? Or you would like it to be mindful and smart on top of that?
But it's a very nice question. I think it's a very interesting question. Thank you for asking this question. I think the best way to answer this question, I would say, like, I wrote Mindful Smart Cities in response to what I saw, what's happening in the smart city dialogue, which was totally eradicating voice of people and really including people into the vision. So the first response from me was to write something that will include mindfulness and shows the potential of mindfulness as a way to have a different way of looking at intelligence per se, because the core of a smart city is ultimately empowered by ICT platform. I have to emphasize on that, is that technology really is the driving engine of making a smart city smart, but smart and intelligent should be argued also. So by broadening the definition of intelligence and including mindfulness also, like mindfully, by broadening it was a mindful act, I wanted to show, well, smart doesn't mean just being quick and fast. It could also include softer components of our being, how we inhabit the city as a part of a smart city dialogue. And happiness indeed is a part of a mindful smart city. I hope that somebody, by living in a mindful smart city, I hope that people would become happier, because ultimately you want them to be participating in the creation of a better future. Or by this model of CLEA that I shared, is that by focusing on mindful smart people and then promoting better lifestyle, hopefully they become happier. So is mindful smart city a happy city? Not necessarily, but it can lead to a happy city. Is happy city a mindful smart city? I don't think so. It can have happiness as a byproduct of what they are doing, but it does not fall on the framework of a mindful smart city. But again, I think in the beginning of the abstract of this talk, I said, anybody that is, in my view, anybody that is using any sort of technology, soft or hard, meaning that if it's technological ICT platforms, or is it just designing a better neighborhood, if it leads to a better place, it's under the fold of mindful smart city. I hope that I answered the question.
Actually, to come back on mindfulness, do you mean by mindfulness, because there are billions of definitions of mindfulness that go from pretty concrete things to very esoteric and somewhere where I get lost personally. Do you mean certain deliberateness when you are mindful? Do you mean that you are deliberate, so you are kind of concentrating on something and doing something with a purpose? Is that how you?
I think first, let me, my definition of mindfulness is the classic definition of, I think, Zen-Kidet, which is kind of like the classic father of mindfulness. So that is what is basically my driving compass. I think I can pass the definition later, maybe later at the end of the talk. But that anything mindful comes with intentionality, a random
purposefulness.
Not necessarily purposefulness, intentionality, meaning that it's just coming from a more thought out action, so not just a reflex and reaction. I think I can say that is a form of intentionality in design. And by having that intentionality, you will avoid, hopefully, some of these pitfalls that are happening, some of these problems that are happening, for example, in terms of like populating your cities with sensory information and then collective data. It comes with a lot of risk of breaching privacy issues for population and citizens. So that is also an extra top layer of complexity added to the system that I think can be mitigated should the design be more mindful.
So Shima, there is a request that you would reshare the screen in which there is your contact data. Email or website. Yeah.
What I still didn't understand is a mindful smart city a city with mindful citizens, or is there some kind of an emergent mindfulness of the city as a whole? That there is some kind of an intelligence that is not the intelligence just of the inhabitant, but that is mindful, because then I'm not clear to me how the city as a whole can
Yeah. I think this is very good question also. It's basically, as I said, looking at a city as a complex adaptive system, this kind of view of through an intentional focus on investing on social capital, investing on designing better spaces, and also integrating better technologies as interfaces, you can lead to a mindful smart city. It's kind of like an emergent property of all these interaction between these components. So definitely it's not something that you can find it or design it or prefabricate it in section of a city, but maybe as a philosophical way of basically a philosophical, but also as a first principle in your design that would lead to a better city. Hopefully I call it a mindful smart city. So for example, with this model of AAAI, most of the smartness comes basically from artificial intelligence. Here I say, no, smartness can come from awakened individuals. If you're a better human being, you act better. I mean, that's, I think, not a rocket science. If you're more mindful, if you're more awakened in a sense of more connected with yourself, have a better sense of self, if you're more happier with who you are, you would be more likely to inhabit a better life. And also you would more likely be showing more sustainable behavior, not just for yourself, but also a larger community. And then also looking at what is there in a city as a body of ancient intelligence. So a lot of this kind of ancient wisdom, literature, text, poetry, stories aren't really being integrated into design. So in my own company, because the talk, I didn't want to have, I already have, I think, 50 slides, I didn't want to put more. I integrated tales, narrative, myth, and stories from Persian literature, where I think are super potent and important in terms of like moving collective consciousness toward adopting better behavior. So this is the way I see a mindful smart city, at least the way we are building it in my company and with the product that we're launching soon.
When you say being integrating it, does it mean that you are experimenting in a particular city, or when you say you are integrating ancient intelligence?
We are launching, like right now we're building an app. If you are very kind of interested, we're building an app. So the app will be ready for...
So that ancient intelligence would be available through an app?
Yes.
Okay, so that to me parallels the abundance of libraries in cities. So what is the difference apart from the technological part? Let's say.
I don't can you repeat?
Yeah, well, my question is about the ancient intelligence, which I sympathize with it being lost. I wouldn't like that. So usually libraries in cities be places where books are stored, where education takes place, and so on. That is kind of the reservoir where ancient intelligence is kept alive, in my view. So you are suggesting that in your version that would move to an app?
No. I'm not moving anything to an app. I will be happy for libraries to be where they are. I love libraries, but the vision we have is basically using the frameworks and ideas and lessons and stories of ancient intelligence. Here I use ancient intelligence like Persian mysticism, for example, which doesn't exist in abundance in many libraries, although you travel to Iran and specific cities, or you speak the language. So in that way, you can tap into that potential and understand basically what that ancient intelligence is offering you. But most of these ancient intelligences, be it Persian or from Lebanon or from Belgium or from other places, they are not modernized, they're not being put into modern, basically use for the modern society. So what I did in my company is that there are tales of Persian literature, which I basically, I think they have a lot of potential, like Buddhism, to be put into practice by extracting lessons and ideas from those texts and then modernizing them and adapting them to the challenges of current society, we can create continuity. And continuity means that giving safety to people, meaning that, well, the world is moving toward a digital destination or some vision, but there is still continuity. There are still relevance in our past that can be pulled into the future that is emerging. And I think this is the idea behind this, having this triple AI model, is that creating a cohesive view of intelligence. Intelligence is not something that can be defined today in 21st century just because we have internet and sensors. Is this thread that is across the body of humanity, across the world, that you can harness it for good. And that is, I think, what we are doing in the app.
You believe that has been lost?
But I didn't say I am, like, it's not
No, it's my question. I don't say. I'm just asking because you want to reintroduce it as far as I understand. So there must be the belief and the very fact you speak about therapeutics. Therapeutics is something, correct me if I'm wrong, you have a problem, you are ill in one way or another, and you kind of need therapy to heal you, to bring you to a good state, to your healthy state that you have somehow left for whatever reasons. Do you consider our cities nowadays to be kind of ill, unhealthy in some way?
I think I think the answer is an obvious yes. That's why I wrote my book. I think that's why many people are writing books. That's why we are here. I think is that the society needs to change, and that change that sometimes need therapy. You know, sometimes we need therapeutic approaches, meaning that, well, understanding what's not working and then hopefully finding ways to basically work through it. But let me just, because I don't want the conversation to be one directional, I want to also know other questions. If there are.
We have one question in
Yeah.
the chat
Yeah.
from Joseph. If in your text you treat the subject of consciousness and artificial consciousness.
In your also
Like if I understand correctly, like how artificial, like how artificial intelligence, like what does it have to do with consciousness, and how those two concepts relate? Or maybe there is an artificial consciousness.
I don't know. I think maybe there would be some artificial consciousness at some point. I mean, if you get like a super intelligent AI, it definitely leads to some sort of it might show some properties of consciousness. But here in my book and in my basically company, we're not concerned with artificial versus natural or synthetic or whatever, or organic in consciousness. What I'm concerned is to develop better societies and better cities. This is my concern. And for that, I think artificial intelligence is also an ally. So that's why I have this model of triple AI and designing the city around this basically framework. So I think the answer to the question, I would say, I'm not talking about consciousness here at all. Although I'm interested in consciousness and I would like to increase the consciousness of a city, but I am not talking about consciousness. Mainly, I'm talking about how we are talking, how we can use different streams of intelligences to create a larger envelope of smartness. So as I mentioned, the smart right now is seen through the lens of technology. What I want to do in this work is to broaden that definition of intelligence, include also collective intelligence, include also the soft intelligence that comes from a vacant person that can show a larger flexibility of behavior. I want to show also there are large body of basically ancient, even maybe sacred texts around the world that we can read them, we can include the lessons into design, and also we can have in artificial intelligence as well. So this is the vision that I am championing, hopefully.
Well, you were also speaking about feeling or emotions. How could artificial intelligence or other smart technologies somehow help to make us feel more feeling, or I don't know what you meant there.
In the which slide?
You said that somewhere in the beginning. That
This one?
the
In this slide? Or no?
I can offer my own opinion on that too.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to have the dialogue. That's why I asked this. But first, let me just also say something else. This is the question. Maybe at some point we can talk about this question also. If you could make one change to your city to make it more mindful, what would that be? So if anybody wants to answer that question, would be also nice.
Yeah, I think that actually bridges the two perfectly. I mean, if there's one thing that I would do to a city to make it better, if like there could be one thing to do, it would just be giving the necessary resources to all the people in the city, which is like one thing that's like a very complicated process, of course, but I think that's the most important thing to do that you should do. Related to that, I would say, if that's accomplished, like if people have their basic resources, which smart city like technology, if it's used in an appropriate and meaningful way, could help give resources to people. Like for example, a lot of digital twin technology and there's a number of smart city technologies that can help in getting people resources, whether it's transportation, whether a number of other resources as well. And then I think the important link is that if this is provided to people, then that can enable them to live a more, I guess, meaningful or a more awakened or intelligent life, because they're not focused on trying to get people. Like I think like a lot of cities today, like as you pointed out, there's kind of like built within the city, there's like a certain like lifestyle, I think. And I think the lifestyle of the city is really connected to the design process too. Because like if you think about it, like the lifestyle, like the everyday lifestyle is in many ways a part of how the city develops, a part of how it is designed, I guess. So if you enable resources to people and you change their everyday life, like they have different, where they don't have to like work 40 hours to get these resources, for example, I think that'll make them much more possible to, I think that'll make them much more capable of achieving things like happiness or awakened intelligence. And I think, of course, that's not like, it's one thing to do, but it's like a really complicated process. But I think by giving people resources, the resources that everybody needs, I think that enables awakening intelligence.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think it's one of the hopefully outcome of the product we're building right now is this kind of has this vision also to provide these resources for people to become more mindful, and some of those resources in terms of like change of behavior, but also some resources in kind of showing how to adopt a better lifestyle. And I think that hopefully will be a place where people can find those resources. But I want to also say that I really think process of change begins with us. It's very easy to want to have technologies or any external solution to do the work for us. I think it's a natural kind of reaction that we want things to happen so quickly. I feel we are in a very special time right now, and I think probably is the most interesting of times that requires every individual to actually transform their way of looking at the world, their way of relating to themselves and to others. So I am very excited. I feel like this is a potent times, and I think everybody with from different domains and disciplines maybe it's called to do something different, and that something different is a little bit also starting from changing your own behaviors, looking at the mental models, paradigms, and thinking styles that no longer serve you or make you unhappy or unmindful. And I think a collection of people builds communities, and if we all people begin to change and not feel that the authorities and city authorities necessarily bring smart city solutions, we could have a better, faster way to create that kind of future.
Yes, yes. I wanted to comment. So for me, the greatest value of what you are working on and this way of framing this, I think the moment where it was very visible is when you showed those last lines in the article saying that like let's best build it from scratch, because we have such a clean and neat model of how it should work that the whole burden of reality is just simply disturbing it. Yes. So it's because it's different than what we want to have, and why I'm saying that it shows their value, because what you are doing is correcting this paradigm. Yes. So it's not really it eventually is enhancing cities in reality, but the primary value is that there has developed a model which is too simplistic and kind of harmful. Yes. So even this word therapeutics that you put there, to me, is like the therapy of this model, So in that sense, yes. Because what this model does, it says this, yes. It it's let's just build it, in a small laboratory, put people there, to those sensors, and they'll be just incentivized where needed, yes. And this is sick. Yes, this is really sick. And if you take the word smartness, okay, but what you bring is kind of pulling it back to wisdom and so on. What I would love to see in your model is this concept that I love. This Latin concept, genius loci, which is the genius of the place. Yes, the kind of spirit of the place, but also using the word genius, which from smartness to genius. And exactly, you have it. Okay, so I don't know that. So the thing is that this wisdom or this depth is coming from history. Yes, so exactly. It's coming from intelligence living in embodied forms through time. Yes, which is in embodied human forms through time. Yes, and this is where actual intelligence in the understanding of intelligence, wisdom is kind of accumulating, being tested, being refined, and so on and so on. So cities do have that. They contain that. Yes, and I think bringing it to the talk about smartness of the city. Those considerations and this understanding is extremely important.
Thank you, Marta. I really appreciate it. I think it's that exactly. That's why I put this paradigm, this model. Somehow, somewhere in smart city design, we stopped because we saw society 5.0, and so that's it. Let's all do it. But then when you read about all these societies, you will see basically there isn't much talked about. I mean, there is nothing talked about this maturation of intelligence, this maturation of smartness, and that's why I thought that maybe I need to add 2 more steps, society 6.0 and 7.0, which is I think it's the ultimate society, which is a society that is based on wisdom, and is based on a mindful sharing of information, creation of information in a more intelligent way, which honors basically the story of humanity. And that's why I thought, well, actually, I was inspired to do this, to bring my own roots of Persian mysticism and Persian literature into the model, and showing that actually there is a way to bring all these things to the city design and modernizing them.
If I could add on that a little bit too. especially like the sense that cities evolve over time. I like how you brought up like ancient cities in the beginning. I thought that was a good point. You might, or someone might be inclined to think about cities going through a process of like self-organization for a while, which like involves these networks that have people, and they're kind of like these spatial flows or flows of services, or whatever they are. And then at a certain point, once self-organization happens, like a self-maintenance of a city, which would be hopefully possible, or like more likely to be attained through technology and like these different kinds of technology. But I think maybe that way to frame it might be interesting as well. And I think like as far as like the self-maintenance goes, it would require, like, it's necessary to have like awakening intelligence and this mindfulness.
Absolutely. I think what I did, which again, I realize if I share all these slides, it would be a 3 hours talk, is that showing the 7 levels of smartness. So actually showing, well, even though that we have this vision of society 5.0 of Japan, if we really dig deep into the current reality of cities, some of the cities they never left industrialization. They're just frozen there. They really need to be upgraded. They need to kind of do a lot of work in terms of being more flexible for change. There are so many cities that aren't still, in fact, they are in a different position and relationship to technology and different view of technology. So the vision of having this kind of 7 level then would allow cities to be on a journey of smartness and to define what level of smartness is actually enough, what level of smartness they can attain, and what is reliable, what is sustainable, and which part of city actually is capable of having a higher degree of intelligence, which part of city isn't that ready. And also the coupling the vision of smart city smartness from the societies or communities or countries or nations that they have the largest amount of basically financial resources. Because if you just think of a society like 5.0, is a society you have to have financial capabilities to deliver such societies. And then I think if we just get that vision, then we end up having exactly like developed countries and developing countries. We can have like developed smart cities and developing smart cities, and those classification, which I want to avoid. I want to have this larger view of smartness and hopefully focus on making people better people rather than just focusing on changing the technology, using technology to change just the built infrastructure. I think there was something in the chat.
Matthew had an interesting thought about the self-organization, the way I imagine smart cities, and I wrote a paper about it, which is only available in Dutch. That a city has always been self-organizing. Once technology can add is make the self-organization more efficient. And how do you do that? Basically by creating a medium to which the different parts of the city, the different agents can interact. And the simplest form is like stigmology. If you create a shared medium where everybody who has a problem and everybody who has an element of a solution can get in touch, then through that medium, problems can self-organize. So the smartness is kind of distributed in the medium. It's like the idea of the pheromone traces of the ants. You create a network of pheromone traces that leads problems to solution, that lead offers to needs, or it's also this idea of the offer network, which I got from Ben Gertzel, which I developed a little bit myself, thinking in terms of CLEA. It's if you have a medium where whoever has some problem or some need can put it in the public place, and whoever has some offer, like I have an old bike that I don't need anymore in my shop, and you are living 3 houses further and you need a bike and you don't care whether it's a new or an old one, then if the medium would exist, it would connect my offer to your need. Both of us would be helped, and as you say, people would more easily get the resources that they need. So I see the smartness a little bit that is kind of a self-organizing intelligence facilitated by technology. The self-organization still needs to happen. It means different people should be able to specify what they need, what they can offer. But technology is like the lubricant that makes the whole self-organization more efficient. Yeah, and this makes the city smarter.
Can I respond to what Francis said? Francis, welcome. That exists in your own city. The platforms like that, and they are functioning, whether they are functioning very well or not, but there is in Livable, there is a platform where you can very easily actually put a proposal, put a thought about something that's in your city and that you don't like or that you would like to have and so on. So there is a platform like that with suggestions and all of those things. Then there are plenty of fora, and for that I know that they exist not only for our city, but for practically all communities in Belgium, where you can pose questions. Usually in the Dutch-speaking part, they are called either induced vragen, there to ask, where people put out questions, problems, where they interact, and I can tell you they interact a lot. So it does work. And then there are also those groups also, and that exists also for almost every city. And I'm pretty sure in Brussels it exists within the communities that are supposed to connect people that live in physical proximity, where you can offer things free or for a smaller price. So that is out there. That's not a dream. That is.
No, I mean, at the simplest level, it's like a newspaper where you put in, whoever wants some wood can come and fetch it.
Yeah, and very often.
But you can have all levels of intelligence inbuilt so that the thing can connect people who may not have had the app because there are thousands and millions of them. And so that was my idea of the offer networks of using the intelligence of the system.
It's being applied and it's being used quite a lot. Like the networks where people ask for help for their kids, for example, for lessons. The kids are not doing well at school, they need help. Plenty of that. That's very easily available, and contacts are made and people are interacting. Actually, about your question there, what is the one thing that you would like to do really again, please? Yeah, if you could make only one change to your city, my answer to that would be abundance of platforms like that, where people are stimulated to interact and where the threshold of interaction is low. Because lots of people, and I happen to have personal experience with that because I was involved with the education in our region and in the city. Lots of organizations exist that are there to help children that struggle for whatever reason, being very smart or being very stupid, having problems at home or whatever in school. People do not dare contact them. If you meet them in the street and you know them, they would talk to you for half an hour how that is not approached well in school and how there is a problem. And when I tell them, for example, there is an organ there that is going to listen, is listening, approach them. It's like there is a threshold. So actually very low threshold platforms that can gather in a way problems and possibly those being open to people that can also offer solutions to those problems.
That is one understanding of mindfulness. That means being very sensitive to everything that's going on, including things that people may not have voiced explicitly, but would like to have, but don't know very well how to.
Yeah, but the threshold there to me is crucial.
Yeah,
It should be really a very low threshold so that people of all backgrounds, of all, because generally in the mind of people, when there is an authority that can solve their problem, it remains an authority. So you have to kind of bother the authority to help you. And that is not easy. For example, for minorities, for people that don't dare speak out. Let's say, I have a problem, I think I will speak out. I think maybe if you have a problem, maybe you would dare speak out. Of course. I'm pretty sure Martha would speak out. But yeah, but the thing is that
I think I understand what you mean. I think it's a great point you're making, actually. I think it's very important point you're making. So you would include a city with abundance of actually platforms that are attracting people from different technological capacities and literacy, so that they can get to what you mentioned, having more resources available. The point that you just made, I think it's a great point, and I'm very thankful for your contribution. I am kind of, this was a question basically I wanted to know if you were to design, you yourself, because I think
it is indeed a very important point in terms of mindfulness. As I said, if I imagine a distributed mindfulness, it should be something that picks up all these very faint signals that's a normally focused intelligence would just focus on, we're going to solve the problem of traffic congestion, while the mindful approach is people in that region are not very happy, but they can't say very well why. But if you check more clearly, then it is maybe because they are afraid that their children don't have a place to play or something like that. Indeed, kind of picking up these very faint signals that people might not know how to formulate.
Exactly. I think it's that I mentioned also this initiative, for example, by Her City, launched by United Nations, is that response to, for example, so many young women and girls in countries, some countries were facing with this harassment in the streets. So this initiative was in response to that. So some people noticed it. There are other initiatives like that people that actually, some of them unfortunately actually victims of those problems themselves, found the courage to found them. So for example, in Morocco, there was this really interesting initiative. It's called Harassment, which shows basically, if you see harassment happening in street, basically you can report it to them, and then they make a harassment which shows basically which areas of the city is more likely to be harassing. So that itself is an information that is worthwhile in terms of like looking at the place in a more, I think, more mindful way. That seeing, for example, maybe the street doesn't have good lighting. Maybe it's dark. Maybe there are so much rubbish and garbage around, so people actually don't feel a sense of city and space. So these are the things that are being picked up, and I'm sure, I don't remember which commune it was, but I know that there was also some similar kind of approach in Brussels, where one neighborhood realized that the park, because there were so many broken bench and broken things, basically high level of crime is correlated with those. So they started to have I think $25 million basically investment in retrofitting the neighborhood, so that it basically gives people more sense of they belong to something and that is their space. So in short, I think I really appreciate your point. I think it's a very important point. It's that exactly this making design that is about people. And I think that having that sensitivity, for example, low threshold of involvability is something that I hope that, for example, in my platform or this approach would encourage people to think about those things.
By the way, what would be your answer to that question?
My answer is very simple. It's what I'm doing right now. I wrote a book about it, and also the only way for me, one change I could make to a city, happened to be Brussels, and also I see all cities as kind of like one. I want to, because I'm looking at smart citizenship, mindful smart citizenship. Is this a platform that would bring a lot of people into that platform, and it would encourage basically great change, not necessarily by me, because I don't think it's my job or it's my capacity to do this, but it's a collective activity. So kind of having a space that would encourage collective co-creation of something meaningful. I think that is what I'm doing, and hopefully we're building. So,
and have you considered, for example, approaching different municipalities? I mean, if we speak about Brussels, or let's say pick another city that you care about and you would like to, have you considered approaching, let's say, the city structure and saying, well, I have those ideas. Would you be interested in a reading by me? Or
I mean, I appreciate again your question. I think, yeah, I have to say, like, we are in the process of making those conversations, but again, I really very much believe in people, because I've seen people actually, there are so many changes that can happen in a city that they don't really need city commune or authority being there, right there, so that for the change to happen.
No, actually, what I meant is not that the city, the commune would make the change, but the community can organize. And one of the reasons that I'm interested in that whole subject is that I have been part of it in the way in Belgium, nobody thinks very highly of the city of Livable for lots of reasons, some of them real, some of them not so. But there is one thing that I personally appreciate a lot. They have put, at least in the last 10 years or so, an enormous amount of work into creating exactly kind of the fertile grounds and planting the seeds so that approaches like that are spread. And one of the things with that famous book that Francis spoke about, I don't know, the humanist stuff. Yeah, it's in Dutch, you don't read Dutch.
The book also, the Peter Ballen.
Peter Ballen. I was shocked at the meeting of the culture, the culture council of the city, to see the counselor for culture enter with that book under his arm. And I thought, that is interesting. That was some 6 years ago, just when the book came out. So I thought, that is a good thing. That's a good sign. And afterwards, I don't know whether that book had something to do with it. I told him to read it. I said, don't you dare not to, anyway. No, but what happens maybe a year or two after that, and I don't know whether the two are related. But in our city, there are quite a lot of social, cultural organizations, associations, and so on. They are all invited to be part of the Culture Council. And at a certain moment, the city came and they said, all of you who are representatives of those different organizations, we are organizing a long weekend with a company that would teach you how to motivate your people in your organizations to participate more. And so we had a long weekend with a company that's the name I can't remember now. I might try to find out later. That were exactly doing those exercises with us. Like they would ask us, what would be your ideal city?
Yeah,
What
I
would
think
be
things
your
like that.
ideal
Yeah,
neighborhood?
I think things like that are happening. Like one of the companies that I am since my PhD years, I've been so inspired by them is Arrow. Arrow is one of the most kind of it's an engineering company that they do a lot of this kind of workshops, also holding them with kids. So how they see city, and it's very interesting. So again, to your question, my focus right now is the platform. So hopefully the first beta version, will come out mid-May or kind of end of May, and we have kind of a prototype ready.
Do you need testers?
Pardon?
Do you need testers?
Beta, that's definitely the beta community. Beta version comes out.
Put me on your list, please.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I will be happy to put all of you on the testing list. In that, see how citizens around the world can together actually create a better place. I think that is the message of my book. I would be very happy to be involved with kind of a city authority, but ultimately, I think the vision is to help people transform themselves, is to help people to have a better sense of place, better sense of self, more positive approach to life, and also better lifestyle in cities. So that is the core, and that is the underlying message. If it happened to be, there are sections where different cities can have their own, basically, let's say, suggestions and ideas, which is basically based on each city. But ultimately, as an umbrella platform of mindful smart citizenship, it would be about promoting continuity of intelligence, promoting better behavior, mental health, especially health of women, which I think is very much missing from this narrative. Mental health, like anxiety, depression. If we could, I think it's a bit kind of maybe too soon to say right now, but I think it would be also interesting if we could address some of the homelessness and refugee crisis and the challenges they face, hopefully on a platform with the help of community. So this is a place I hope that it will bring people like you, people like Francis, people like Martha, people who are actually involved with positive change, promote change, not just a platform. But I think that is the message. Do you have any question?
Yeah, I have another thing as far as like changing cities go, it's like so difficult to imagine like changing one particular city because now like maybe back like older Asian cities, like these kinds of things might be possible. But a like particular city, like I personally had a lot of trouble trying to figure out how it operates as like one particular system or complex system or whatever you want to call it, or agency. So it's embedded in like a whole network of financial institutions, like other global institutions, all these kind of like systems, which this guy Mark Rand, he's like one of the platform urban researchers, scholars, I guess, and he calls it conjunctural geographies, where like platforms, even though there are nice platforms that like are building up in certain cities, like the everyday platforms that most people use are these like conjunctural platforms where it's in a city, but it's also it's like Uber or all, especially like labor ones do. They're so like it's hard to change one particular city when these conjunctural geographies of like these platforms are on like other scales, like geographically, other scales, like in terms of like.
What is it? Conjunctural because
it just means like it's within one place, like a specific city, like Uber or like Deliveroo or whatever it is, like these platforms are in one city, and then they're also like governed in like
Yeah.
Sao Paulo or like
Like,
other
for example, the headquarters are in New York, but they operate in Paris.
right. And like to kind of continue further, like or just to make a quick suggestion, I think an important thing to focus on is like this like scale or like when thinking about like the platforms that we could use in cities that are really meaningful. I think scale is really important because
Scale.
yes, scale. As like geographic scale or like number of users.
Yeah, I think maybe I kind of unpack a little bit here. I think what I mean by platform isn't, let's say, for example, a platform that that has solutions where you can use those solutions and then apply them, for example, in New York or Paris or whatnot. The platform is mainly a journey of transformation platform, which takes citizens, regardless of their cities, on basically a journey of change. You living in, let's say, Brussels or Paris, you decide what kind of change is needed for your city. So it's a kind of like a, let's say, a catalyst for change, but the application of those change comes in the city. So it's kind of like offline, online platform. And I believe really, really strongly is that the new approach to city design should actually involve right on spot in the city. So it shouldn't be just, I promote change online, but offline, I don't care. The change has to have this continuity. I initiate the seed of change online, but I am following its point of action on the local space. So that is what basically in this kind of platform I try to promote. But again, as I said, it's a beta, so it's really a work in development, and it's subject to a lot of change. So I will definitely include all these ideas into design.
I'm thinking about this question that you asked here. So, like for me, I don't have one answer, I have to, and I can't, not even sure how to combine them. If I imagine it, mindfulness is for some reason not really a concept I'm using around, and I'm using this word, but the way I understand it, one thing would be what would it mean for a city to be more mindful? I translate it to the city in how it's operating would kind of invite people to become more aware or pay more attention. So like, because what is what is awareness, like you have kind of more attention available, and like being invested in different things deeper for longer time and so on and so on. So for that, and it kind of like goes counter all this interactivity and everything, that like for attention to be kind of disposed better, people need to be like, like not so burdened, yes, and not so like, like all this busyness and all this, like on schedule everything, and everything is like competing for your attention, yeah. So how can you like, how can you focus? How can you, so actually I like maybe it's not so counterintuitive that you like deploy things that are interconnected for really like freeing the like making space for attention, yes, because things will get automated, so you don't have to attend to them, but it's like it's very, very delicate, because like when everything starts to compete for your attention, and asking you also to questions from all sorts of platforms all the time and engaging you in everything, yes, you like your attention becomes so scattered, yes, that it's like it's kind of productive in terms of mindfulness. So something to do, like architectures of attention would be one. And another one is, like put the volume high on the, like, like if it was this kind of slider on beauty. Yes? And if you take like an average city, how to make it more mindful, like I would like just like, destroy like 30% of buildings and and just those ugly buildings you don't want to watch, look at. And bring something beautiful.
Exactly.
So
I love what you said, Marta. I think I really like basically you described some of these rights that I have in the book, Human Design, Digital Urban Rights. the right to design, the right to technology, and the right to information. The right to design is actually calling designers of cities to care more about aesthetics, to actually include more ways that actually promote this appreciation of beauty, which I think actually having more beautiful spaces has positive impact on behavior of people, and also it's very inspiring. Also, the right to technology and information, calling the designers of technological devices and sensors and IoT and AI specifically and computer science domain to pay attention to the attention span. Actually, it is included in this framework of digital urban rights, and integrate this idea of having places in the city that are not actually connected. Places that you don't need to be connected, places that you don't need Wi-Fi, places that you actually have this larger space for your attention not being scattered by devices. And I think this also the right to becoming is the right to not be influenced by algorithms. So actually your state of being remains still pristine and not programmable. I think is that if that's kind of the change you want to make is actually, I mentioned that I included them into this the digital urban rights. So I thought about them a lot, especially when I was in India and Bali, which I wrote the two last chapters of my book. Where I realized, well, actually, there is different way that these cities are looking at intelligence, and there is different way that they use their attention differently compared to like some cities in Europe. And I agree with you with this destruction of some buildings and replacing them with more beautiful spaces. I agree. I think it gives a better, hopeful narrative as well, I think.
Yeah, I would continue on that point on like making beautiful cities. I also think like it's not just about like the building. I mean, I completely agree with what you said.
I'm joking.
But if you
Ask for it.
yeah. If you have a city that enables or gives like people resources and enables free time and leisure, I think that like makes the city more meaningful as well, or it allows beauty to emerge like within people. So I mean, I think there's like a physical aspect where you have, I mean, places that are or buildings that are a little nicer than the one on my left, for example. But you also have like resources and like I guess like ways of enabling beauty within people through the system.
I have actually a section, now you say that, also connected to what Marta said. I have a section in my book which I call about, I call it socio-technological epigenetics. I mean, epigenetic normally used in biology as a way that in environment basically signaling genes. So I had this idea that what if you could design a city as some sort of an socio-technological epigenetic landscape that through design you would actually move people toward better behavior. So you look at the city as kind of a continuation of a epigenetic landscape, which we should basically shape. I think maybe shaping is a bit maybe enable is better, because if I say shape, they might kind of suspect social engineering. But I want to have this kind of like I had this vision of if you have a socio-technological epigenetic landscape, then maybe through design you can influence people and you can inspire people. Actually, inspire is the word I was searching for, to have a better outlook for their cities and also better participation and extend their sense of self. So you just don't do interior design to your apartment. You want to bring that beauty also outside. So it's kind of like a large continuum of my city starts from where my apartment to where I basically do my journey in a city. So it's not just I leave my house now, I am entering into the backyard of my neighbor's building, so I don't care. So it's that continuity of beauty that I had in mind.
I also strongly resonate with what Martha said. I think part of it is that there is this grabbing of attention, most obviously by advertising. If you have billboards where there are constantly moving images with lots of colors, that's kind of one of the worst things for your mindfulness. But also, lots of modern architecture wants to make some kind of a statement that is provocative, by making some building in some strange shape. And you might say at first that that's more aesthetic than just making a straight building. But on the other hand, it's always kind of forcing you to create attention. It's like this deviating from the norm by deviating from what people expect. You grab the attention, but you grab it in a very brutal way. It's not mindful. That's why I would like to see a much more natural design, more trees, more parks, more nature. That is aesthetic, but not in a way that imposes a lot of modern art with geometrical shape, with very clear lines and strong colors. It's grabbing attention in a kind of a brutal way, in a kind of a non-mindful way. So I would like to soft Rubik's designs that are more natural.
To continue on that point, which I entirely agree with, it's almost like a city enables like different kinds of songs from its participants, or like from its like I guess agents. And I think you use the term songs as well, but like advertising, for example, it's so like in your face, it's so like demanding your attention. But I think like a city well designed would enable, I don't want to say like careless, but like voices that aren't trying to prove anything. Voices that are like trying to promote creativity, community as well. So I think it's, in some sense, you might be, or somebody might be inclined to do the city as like this agency that enables different kinds of work, or like a system that enables different kinds of work, or encourages different songs or poetry.
I think we're approaching the end of today's seminar. I would like to thank everybody that was present in person, those that were online, and also we'd like to thank people who are watching this presentation on YouTube. Please write your comments. Write your thoughts. If you could make only one change to your city to make it more mindful, what would that be? Please participate in the dialogue, and I wish you well. Thank you very much for your attention.